Let's talk to animals. Have you ever wished that you could talk to animals? Like a modern day Doolittle, so to speak? You can. I'm here to tell you that you can. My name is Shannon Cutts. I'm with Animal Love Languages. This is Pearl Cutts, my 22-year-old feathered sidekick. He never misses an episode. And we were just telling Miss Trisha that you've been with me since you were 5 weeks old, right? Yeah, where mommy goes, Pearl goes, right? Yeah. Yep. So here we are for another wonderful episode of Let's Talk to Animals. I've shared this story quite a number of times, but I will never forget right after I had my very first experience of talking to animals, my first thought was, everyone can do this. And that's exactly where this podcast and YouTube series came from. I felt so inspired to share the good news, so to speak, with others. And to do that, to help me do that, I've invited Trisha Wren to join us today. Before I forget, because sometimes I do, all the way until the end, you can find Trisha at trishaWren.com. That's TRISHAWREN.com. Just to make sure you have it in case you have to jet early. We are going to be chatting about Trisha's process and her progress and her experience, evolution as an animal communicator that evolved out of her work and her lifelong love of horses. So welcome, Trisha. Thank you so much for donating your time and you're generously agreeing to share your wisdom with us today on the podcast and the vlogcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So happy to be here. I'm here in the US. You are in New Zealand.
And I am, but in case anyone's confused by the accent, I am Scottish.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I visited Scotland in May.
Oh, nice.
When I was still at university, which was a very, very long time ago. But it was so magical. It was so wonderful. And even though it was actually kind of drizzly and rainy there at the time, everybody was eating soft serve ice cream everywhere we went. It was super crazy. I loved it. I would love to go back. And I have never visited New Zealand and I would love to go. But that is not what we are here to talk about today, and I am easily distracted. So what I'd really love to do is just kind of open it up. Of course, a lot of folks that are listening to this podcast or finding us on YouTube have an interest in animal communication. As many animal communicators as there seem to be in the world, we never have enough. We always need more. And there are lots and lots and lots of folks that still don't even realize that we exist, or that animal communication is a birthright gift. It's something that connects us to every other being and all the energies that are on our planet and surround our planet. And it is, it's kind of it's one of the most beautiful ways to experience being alive. So much of me that I never even knew was there only opened up when I started learning how to tap into this universal language. So that's where I always like to start with these podcasts and is to just ask, what happened? Like, how did you know that talking to horses, talking to animals was even a thing,
Oh, well, I'm not sure that I did really.
Okay.
But I think for me, it all started when I started looking for more holistic and sympathetic ways of working with my horses. I read lots, I researched all sorts of different things to try and find what felt right to me. I remember that around that time, a friend came across an animal communicator and said, why don't we get this lady to come and talk to our horses? So we did, and she came in person to our property, and she was pretty accurate. There were things that she couldn't have known, and we enjoyed it, but at the same time it didn't really wow me. And I think that and I think a lot of people still do this, I kind of saw it as a bit of a party trick. You know, it was a one-off, it was just something different to do, rather than something that could actually be of ongoing help or something that I might be able to do. So I guess that in a way, with hindsight now, that has kind of shaped why I specialize in horses and why I work the way that I do, but we can come back to that. But that was kind of the start for me. I mean, after that, I did, at some point after that, I went on a weekend animal communication course. Again, I was sort of searching for answers and trying to figure out, because I had a difficult horse. I still have her, actually.
Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, she came to New Zealand with us. She's 30 now. I've had her all her life. And yeah, we had a very difficult phase, and I could not figure out what the problem was. And so in all my searching and trying to find out, you know, what I needed to do and what the heck she was trying to tell me.
What was going on?
I went on this animal communication course, sort of a 2-day weekend thing, and it was all small animals, obviously. There was, I don't know, cats and rabbits and things like that, and photos. And you know, you get led through exercises, and I did have some success, but again, it didn't didn't really click into place or wow me. And I found that when I went home, I couldn't replicate it on my own. Yeah, what really made everything fall into place for me was joining a meditation group.
Fantastic.
I tried meditating many times over the years, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. The mind doesn't love meditation, does it?
No. Oh, you know, like, I'm a trier. I try all sorts of things. Like, you know, I throw myself into things, and I research, and I'm endlessly curious, and I want to learn. But it didn't really happen for me all those years. I was working with horses and traveling and teaching. And I can remember, this would be about 15 years ago, it was in Australia. I was teaching a clinic, horse and rider biomechanics is what I used to teach. And I had touched this horse in a certain way, just to kind of bring him inside his body and help him to ground himself and relax. And I was standing waiting for him, allowing him to process. And somebody who was watching in the audience called down, "Oh, Trisha, you can so hear what he's saying to you." And I went,
Yeah, really? Do tell.
And when I was speaking to her later, I found out that she was an animal communicator, and I think up until that point, I always thought, and I'm sure this is a really common thing too, I always thought that animal communicators could hear animals talking to them, could hear streams of conversation and chatter to them in their head. And that is not how it works for me. I never had that. And so I thought, I'm not an animal communicator, don't be silly. And so, you know, it has taken time and work, because I I do believe it's a practiced skill too. The more you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. It's taken time for me to learn how it works for me, and how to interpret what I'm getting, what it means, and to kind of hone it, if you like. So, I think that's a pretty common thing for people, that they think, oh, well, I can't do that. I don't hear animals talking to me,
Right.
So that's
Right.
been a big part of how I kind of teach people now, and or even just put that information out there, inform people that there are lots of ways that you might be receiving your information.
Exactly. I think there has been, it's weird. I usually don't use the modern day Doolittle kind of that I don't usually use that reference, but now I understand why I said that, because I think that movie and the concept, it really has influenced, we do kind of look like a party trick, Doolittle, like that was like a really random rare thing that just happened to this one person. And it's like I've shared this story a couple times on the podcast, but it bears repeating. When my father was in hospice, one of the nurses that we had, my mother is so proud, the moment I talked to their dog, and then she's like running all over the neighborhood, my daughter talks to animals. And one of our nurses, she told the nurse, and she said, oh, my daughter's been doing that since she was 3.
Wow.
And I said, oh, that is so neat. And she said to me, I'm so glad that I don't have that gift. And I thought, she's like, I wouldn't want that. And instantly I realized, and I said, your daughter doesn't just, we don't walk around all the time just hearing all of the beings around us, just, this conversational symphony in our head. Maybe your daughter does because she's so young. She hasn't learned, how to tune out when she needs to focus on something else. She's just really open. But, it's a channel like anything else. It's our birthright, and you can do it too, but it's just, you have to learn how to adjust your radio dial. And it is, and so it's like anybody out there right now who's either found us deliberately or stumbled on us by chance here as we're chatting about animal communication, 2 things. One, it's something, exactly what you said. It's, it's a gift, but it's also a skill. And as just like we come into this into our lives maybe with a default birth language, like mine was English, and so I still had to go to school for like 16 years to learn how to use it. It doesn't mean that I got a download, I unzipped the file, opened the program, and boom, that would have been wonderful. 16 years of boring English classes just gone. But, and 2, there's like, I love what you just said. There's so many ways that conversation can take place. And I would love it if you would share a little bit more about what that's been like for you, because I think that there are probably a lot of people who are tuned in, who are already having conversations and don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I was going to say I see it especially with horse people, but I think anyone who has a really close relationship with their animal, whatever species it is, has a connection, a deeper connection than they may even be aware of. Because horse people, for instance, get really good at learning what the horse's body language means. What does it mean when it flicks its tail, or when it pins its ear, or any of those things. What different facial expressions mean. So you can be having a sort of silent communication with your animal, even just via those things. Oh, he's not very happy today. I bet that's because I blah blah blah. But then when you go deeper, the people who are getting extra information, and maybe it freaks them out a bit, or maybe they just don't know what it means. It can be things like, you know, you might hear a word, a sentence, you might get colors, you might get, you know, so for instance, with colors, they could be relating to how the horse is feeling that day. Maybe you'll get a darker color when, you know, he's feeling a bit grumpy or angry, for instance, and maybe you see brighter colors when it's a happy day. It could be anything. You might get visuals, you know, where you can, where you're you know there's something wrong with your horse, but you can't figure out what, and maybe you see in your mind's eye a picture of their left hind leg, or, you know, their right front hoof, or something like that. You might get a picture that leads you to something, tells you something. You might get feelings or emotions. I get that a lot. I get that, you know, I can feel whether the horse that I'm connecting with is happy or sad, or, you know, upset or disgruntled. Some people will feel pain, you know, so you might think, oh, my right shoulder is really sore today, but I have no idea why, and then realize that actually it's your horse's right shoulder that's the problem. So, you know, there are lots of different ways that you might be getting information, and, you know, really, I'll say again, it's a practiced skill. It's I think the first thing is to kind of accept it and not be freaked out by it.
Yes.
Be curious about it, and to explore it a bit or practice it, you know, to think, okay, well, I'm getting this kind of randomly. I wonder if I could get it if I ask for it, you know, like if I'm getting that sore shoulder type of information, how about if I actually say, let me feel where my horse is sore right now. So, you know, you can develop your skills that way by pinpointing how you're getting your information, and then, you know, taking it a bit deeper. So yeah, you know, I think a lot of the skill of it is about trusting it and exploring it and practicing it.
That feels, I think back to all of the different, you know, classes I've attended over the years to learn this, that, and everything else. And, you know, there's always that kind of that initial exposure shock. It's like, is this really real? You know, what is happening to me? There is a tendency, I think, just because of our, you know, again, our shared fight or flight survival system, our deep limbic brain that has a tendency to react to anything new. Like, are you a threat? Are you? Come on, confess. Like, okay, you're not threatening. All right. So I don't have to freak out. Just like you said, I don't have to freak out. Now I can get curious. And curiosity is the great energizer. It's the great breaker of barriers.
Yeah.
Because when we're curious, we're playing. We're just, like you said, we're just exploring. We're just kind of seeing, you know, there's so much of a tendency to go, well, if I go down that road, I better have a reason. Better have a goal in mind. I better, you know, use your time wisely, you know, get an A. It's like, there's none of, you don't need any of that for this. You know, it's enough of a goal to just feel more connected to the planet we live on and the other beings in it. And to evolve in our understanding of how we fit in. And I think this is a particularly relevant focus for what's going on right now, how we are all more alike than different. Regardless of what we look like on the outside, and that extends to species. I love how you say it, you share on your website, and I definitely want to talk to you more about your classes and your book. Sounds phenomenal and intriguing, and meditation and the role in that, because I also think that's really key. That's been really helpful for me. But you know, just really kind of starting with you know, maybe your curriculum is designed for people who care for horses and love horses because that's your background, and because unlike me, you don't have to struggle when you're doing a communication for a horse and you're like, well, is it the shoulder or the withers or the hops or the this or the that, or where's the hoof? And it's just like, it's so easy, you know, to bridge that the language barrier isn't there, so to speak. But you also say in your courses, this is for all animals, and you could just as easily substitute dog or cat or parrot for horse, and it would be just the same, you know. And so it feels like it doesn't matter if you want to talk to. I actually did a communication last week for a woman and her dog who'd crossed over, but while we were chatting, she mentioned this problem that she was having with some rodents in her backyard that were eating everything in her vegetable garden, and it was very frustrating. And I explained just a couple of the principles of animal communication. This woman has never done animal communication before. I explained just a couple of the principles. I said, you know, you can talk to them. You can send, I explained, I shared one technique to send them mental pictures. And so we talked a little bit about how to do that and encourage the rodents to, you know, have dinner elsewhere. And it worked. Like 2 days later, all the rodents are gone. Their hawk has moved in, you know, so we know where some of the rodents went, right? But it's just, sorry guys, but seriously, it's like sometimes it can be, what I want everyone listening and watching to hear and take in is that it can actually be that quick and that easy. And one of my mentors said, you know, the hardest thing about this is how easy it is. You know, it's like, I loved how you said at the beginning, you know, it was kind of like a party trick. We are, I mean, we make good party tricks. We do. We're fun. You know, I happen to think that animal communicators are pretty fabulous people. We're cool to hang out with. We're fun. We're creative, and we're curious, and that makes for great conversations and lots of good explorations. But at the end of the day, what makes us feel and look and seem like a party trick is because the hardest thing about this is how easy it is. It's innate to all of us. And so, yes, there's the, you know, it's like I grew up in a musical family. I had to practice for years to learn the muscle I love how you said biomechanics of the horse and the rider. I had to learn me and my instrument. You know, I had to learn how to train my small muscles and do all the things. But the gift, and that was the biggest frustration, is that I could hear things before I could actually execute them. And so if you're listening or you're watching right now, there's some piece of you that's already resonating with you. And that's the piece that's going to make it easy. It's also the piece that's going to make it hard. So let's talk, Trisha, about your course and your services and how you can help people. I am not a teacher, at least not yet. The animals haven't asked me to do that, but they have asked me to bring this information to interested students because we need you. The animals need you. And so I want, one of my goals with this podcast and this YouTube series is to connect people who want to learn with the teachers they resonate with. So I would love it if you share a little bit more about how you work with students and how you serve pets and their people, especially horses, and kind of what would that be like if they wanted to work with you? Yeah.
Well, as you said, I mean, I've been a passionate horse person all my life, so and an equine professional, you know, teaching horse and rider biomechanics, doing horse body work, and so all of that already gave me that deeper understanding and connection with horses. When I first decided to switch, and I pretty much did it overnight, from being an an instructor, horse instructor effectively, to being a full-time animal communicator, I sort of thought, oh, well, actually, I don't know if I thought it consciously, but I probably subconsciously assumed that I couldn't just be a horse communicator. So when I started out, I was advertising to all animals. And then I realized that actually my specialty is horses, and I should just put the majority of my focus there. And as it turns out, horse people have lots of other animals. Horse people have dogs and cats, and I've done cockatiels, and I've done sheep and cows, and you name it. Lizards.
I love them.
but my specialty is horses, and so I advertise to horse people. And for me, I think horses, I don't know if this is just because I'm a horse person, but I think horses are special.
Well, we're going to go with that. Horses
no
are
offense
special.
To Pearl.
So are parrots, so are all animals. But exactly. I do believe we are called. I mean, I shared with you before we started I'm so passionate about so-called exotic animals, especially turtles and parrots. So we are on board there. Yeah. Horses are special.
They are. And I mean, I think that with horses, because I do other animals as well, I see differences. The information that I get from a horse is much different and much more in depth than what I would get from a family dog, for instance. And I think part of it is what we do with horses. The very fact of the way we keep them, the fact that we raise them, that we, put them in vehicles and take them places, and, just all the things we do with horses. It takes a certain kind of animal to cope with all of that, for one thing.
And being ridden. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go ride Pearl,
Exactly.
that takes some tolerance on the horse's end.
So there are different aspects to horses and the connections we have with them. So partly because of the way I get my information, and partly because of my experience with horses, the way that I work is that in a session, I do all my sessions remotely. So all I need is a photo and the horse's name. It can be any photo. It can be an old photo. It can be a headshot. I'm not looking at what the horse is doing in the photo. I'm just making an energetic connection.
Got it.
And then in my sessions, what I do is I've done Reiki in the past. And so I, if you're photocopying something, you put your piece of paper on the plate and the light scans it like that. Mm-hmm. When I'm doing my sessions, it's kind of like I'm doing that. I do a body scan. So it's as if I'm looking at the horse sideways on, and I start at the nose and I scan the left side of the body, and then I scan the right side of the body, and I get stopped where there are issues. I've also learned, partly because of my experience, or kind of developed a sort of protocol. So I know which questions to ask. I know where the tricky areas might be. I know the things to check that are the common issues that horses have, like how are his teeth doing? Are his feet balanced? And so I go through a whole kind of protocol, checking them out physically. And then I do a lot of energetic work. I rebalance their energy field and their chakras. I check that their meridians are in balance. I clear away any negative energy effectively. And then I get to questions. As I said, I'm not getting a stream of information, so I tend to kind of prompt the animal. You know, I'll ask them questions. How are you doing? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And if I ask questions, I get answers. And the answers might be visual, they might be a color, they might be a feeling. But as I said, I've learned how to put it all together and how to interpret it. So what I find is that for horse owners, that's super, super useful. And I have a lot of people who get regular checks of their horses because they know that, oh, Trisha, he's feeling a bit off. I think he needs another energy balance. Or you really helped him last time with this. Could you ask him how he's feeling about blah, blah, blah. And they understand that, you know, they're getting a sort of comprehensive report of how their horse is doing right now and what they might need to focus on or change. And it's really rewarding because I know, it's like you said a minute ago, that anyone who's watching this is already interested, right, in some way. Well, that's that's probably the biggest thing I love about my work, is that I don't get the sort of naysayers, or, you know, the people that think this is crazy. I only get people who want to help their horses, and that's really cool and really rewarding.
I mean, that's such a huge important point, because, you know, there is still, even though with everything that we're going through right now, just on a planet, and just the driving need to save and conserve and protect and cherish what we have here. I mean, Mars sounds great, but we have a really great planet right here, right? And it would be super cool if at least some of us got to stay. And so, you know, there is this rising tide of interest in, let's dig deeper, let's go beyond, you know, what we can comprehend and interpret with our minds. Let's start using all of our senses, and that means working with energy, and that means understanding from the networks of fungi that you know, support the trees and the plant life, to why are all the other animals like seeming to be in sync, and we're the only ones that are consistently kind of, you know, swimming upstream here, just us and the salmon. But I mean, but they know why, you know, and it's like, we have no idea. Most of us have no, why did I just do that? Why did I just say that? Why didn't I say that? You know, and just feeling so lost, wherever it feels like the planet would just be ticking along just fine without us, you know. And so, you know, there is still that contingent, you know, that are skeptical at best, and just, you know, I would say probably, you know, distrustful, or just, you know, doubting, or just scared, because opening up is going to turn everything that they think they know 180 degrees, and that's super scary. And I totally get that. Like, we don't want to rush into things like that. Can be super scary, you know, but it's like, it's also setting our intention. It's like, are we here to convince, or are we here to do good? And it's like, you know, you could either spend all of your, and I have met communicators who do really seem to cater to the doubting or the disbelieving, and that's fine if that's where they feel called. Like, as for me, I'm already 50, like, time's a waste, and I want to help. You know, I want to work with the people that already, they're at least curious enough to want to have an experience and then make up their minds. You know, and there could be there, you know, because this actually occurred to me. I used to be the person who hired animal communicators. Like, my first experiences talking to animals came later in life, and they came when, you know, I had a rather difficult, complicated, exotic interspecies family, and they were not like super excited about each other. And so and then one of them decided to wander off, and that's kind of where I got my entree into animal communication. I loved it. I thought, this is the greatest thing. I want to do this a lot, like a lot more than I can afford to do it. But I never thought I could be one of them until I was meditating one day. And in my meditation, I heard, you are an animal, sensitive and intuitive. And I thought, what the heck is that? That sounds cool, but what the heck is that? And of course, when I started to learn more and explore that, then I'm thinking to myself, well, why don't I just talk to my own animals all the time? I'm learning to do this. So let's talk for a minute about, there's two things going on right now with the work that you're doing. You're connecting with people who have horses who want you to help them build a closer relationship, and you're teaching people how to do this work for themselves. I guess where I'm kind of going with this and what I kind of learned, I'm not sure how to ask the question, but where is there value in adding a trained communicator, a professional, practiced? I like practice better than trained communicators to the mix when you can also do this. Like, why do I still hire animal communicators, which I do? Why does that make sense?
Well, I've got quite a few clients who I would call, pretty spiritual, connected people with horses who still get me to check in with them. I think one thing is I don't talk to my own horses very often at all, or my dogs. I've got 2 dogs under my feet as we speak. I think it can be harder to speak to your own animals because when they're yours, you've got all that history with them, you've got that personal relationship with them, and it's much, much harder to tune in a clear, unbiased, unemotional way. And all those things can color the information that you're getting, or whether you trust the information. And so one of the big benefits of getting someone else to do it for you is that, I find it really easy to be impartial because I have no connection to that horse, even if it's one that I've spoken to often, or even if they belong to someone that I know. It's really easy for me to be separate from it and to just lay it out. Here's what I got. And I very, very rarely hold stuff back. I always figure that if I'm getting something and I think, oh, I don't know if I should tell them that, occasionally that can be a tough one. Yeah, but 99% of the time I just say it and they go, oh, that makes perfect sense, or that's because of such and such. It's always there for a reason. I see that more as a test for me than anything else. Do I trust it enough to pass it on? So I think, those are the reasons why it can be easier or even better sometimes to get an animal communicator to do it for you. But if on a sort of day-to-day basis, if there's no kind of urgency and no sort of really fraught situation or something,
exactly,
then sure, practice it yourself, get good at figuring it out. I think for me, the reason I don't do it with my animals is I don't want to badger them. I don't want to always be, I don't want them to feel like I'm in their head all the time, So I only use it when I need to use it. Like if I think one of them is sick or something like that, then I'll check in on them. But I don't do it as a kind of routine thing with my own animals. But I think for your sort of average pet owner or horse owner, I think it's a really good thing to learn because it's giving them a much different relationship and deeper connection with their animal.
It feels, what you said is just, it's so spot on, because that's exactly how I do it when there's an issue where I know I can't be objective about this. Like when I wanted to, you've all met Pearl, who's eating his evening rice right now. So those of you who are watching, that's why he's not on my shoulder right now. Well, I added one and then two tortoises, well, a tortoise and then a box turtle to our family. And he had been an only bird for 15 years. And so, altogether now, was Pearl happy? No. And so, and it got pretty obvious. And so here I am faced with, well, we've already added these two other beings to our family. It's not like I'm just going to kick them out, So trying to kind of navigate that. And boy, it's been very successful, but I am not in any position, just like I'm not going to do my own root canal, even if I'm a trained dentist. There's all kinds of problems with that, not the least of which is it's hard to see when it's your own mouth. It's kind of the same concept,
Also, I think it works both ways. We were both saying, I might be too emotionally involved to connect, communicate with my own animal in these circumstances. But it works the other way too. I mean, I fully believe there are times where animals hide things from us or don't want to tell their owner something because they don't want to upset them, that sort of thing. So, that's another reason why getting someone else to do it can be better, because there isn't that same worry, and it's easier for me to say to an animal, well, tell me how you're feeling and then we'll figure out what to tell mum,
Exactly.
Rather than them just not wanting to say anything,
Mm-hmm. Because the animals, it may seem like our animal, it's so torturous for us when an animal gets sick or acts out or doesn't get along with another animal or person in our family or whatever is going on. But that's always for our ultimate benefit. And I mean, I so relate when you're like, oh God, do you really want me to tell her or him that? Really? What? I don't want to, and it's like, and then to be able to go back to the animal and say, well, can we, can we rephrase that? Or is there another way that I can share the information and just kind of work with it?
Yeah.
So it doesn't come with such an, initial shock that it's like, and just kind of sensing, and I think also the animal who may have been withholding, because I agree. I mean, animals, just like human animals, non-human animals, can be complex and they have their reasons and they're really good at reading us and deciding what we can take and what we can't take. And so it's kind of like when their human goes to seek out an animal communicator, then that animal understands, no, this person is really serious about wanting to know what's going on with me. Like maybe they can handle it. And then again, like you said, it's just a matter, it's like, oh, I don't really want to say that to this, it's like, well, we'll work together and I get to be, the messenger rather than the animal directly, So I want to encourage anyone who is listening, anyone who has stumbled across Let's Talk to Animals podcast on YouTube somewhere, because YouTube has its own weird ways of curating things and suggesting what you should watch next, right? If you are listening to this, if you are watching, just consider that perhaps the animals in your life, maybe your pets, maybe the squirrels in your backyard, who knows, maybe they're just giving you a friendly little nudge. Maybe this is the day that you consider that you too can talk to animals. Maybe you want to reach out to Trisha, TrishaWren.com, that's WREN.com, and consider taking one of her courses or having a session, especially if you happen to have a horse in your life. What a neat and exciting way to feel closer. We do these podcasts twice a month right now. That could change at any time. Never underestimate my ability to pack my schedule with more podcasts than I can edit, but we will definitely be here twice a month. You can learn more about our podcast series at animallovelanguages.com/podcast. I too am an animal sensitive and intuitive. That's a whole other story. Communicator and Reiki master. So from one Reiki practitioner to another, I adore that we're connecting together. And I just want to encourage you to continue to stay tuned, and we'll be back very soon with another podcast and YouTube series episode. Okay, bye for now.